is being streamed live. Today's meeting is being streamed live on the Township of Ramara YouTube channel. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The Chair and/or Secretary-Treasurer have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and is also being live streamed, and that all/some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other people may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Thank you. In accordance with Section 44-1 of the Planning Act, the Council of the Township of Ramara has appointed this Committee of Adjustment to hear applications for variances to the zoning bylaw and applications for consent to sever land. The members of this committee are private citizens who are not members of council, nor are they employees. Committee members are provided with information about each application prior to the public hearing to enable them to review the sections of the township's bylaws which are relevant and to make a site visit if needed. No discussion of applications occur, nor will any decisions be made outside of the public hearing. The procedure for hearing applications is as follows. 1. The Secretary-Treasurer will describe the application and the extent of its processing to date. Number 2. The applicant or agent will be asked for his or her comments. Number 3. Members of the audience will be asked for their comments. Number 4. The applicant may then provide further information. Number 5. Committee members will then provide questions or comments to be followed by the decision of the committee. A written copy of the notice of decision will be sent to the applicant and anyone who provides the Secretary-Treasurer with a written request, including their full name and address. Decisions of this committee may be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal by the applicant, a minister, or a specified person or public body. The procedure is included with the notice of decision, and if you wish to be advised of a possible land tribunal hearing, you must request in writing a copy of this committee's decision. Once the application has been heard by the committee and the 20-day appeal period has ended, the application sign should be removed from your property. The sign can be returned to the township for reuse or recycling. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the November Committee of Adjustment meeting. I will introduce the members. To my left is Member Truax and Member Walker, and to my right is Member Warren. Our Secretary Treasurer today is Carissa Barker, and I am Chloe Black, the Chair to the committee. Please address all comments to the Chair and ensure all cell phones are silenced to ensure that an orderly meeting is maintained. Okay. So under Section 3, disclosure of pecuniary interests, do any of the committee members have a conflict of interest to declare with any of the agenda items? Seeing none, we will move on to the applications. So the first application, item 4.1, can the Secretary Treasurer please discuss this application?
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to get this PowerPoint up here. Okay, so we are discussing Part 8 and Part 9 of Richwood Place, submitted by agent Justin Rich, and the property owner is 149849919 Canada Limited. Applications have been submitted requesting consent to allow for the creation of 3 new lots. So application files B8 and B9 are on Part 8 of Plan for 51R 44469. I won't keep reading that all throughout the discussion today, but anyway, that's the plan it's on. And the intent of these applications are to sever 2 lots from this parcel. And the proposed lots will all be about an acre in size, as well as the retained lands. And the proposed lots have a 41 meter as well as a 32 meter frontage and a 31 meter frontage for the retained lands. And then let me just fix this here. I think I've got one of these wrong. So part 9 is for 1 new lot, and it is also about an acre and has a frontage of 31 meters, and the retained lands will have a frontage of 41 meters. And then here is just a sketch of both of the proposed severances. And then in terms of circulation, we hadn't really received any comments, and building department as well as the infrastructure department of Ramara had no concerns. And in terms of policy, the PPS 2024 does permit development within settlement lands where there's adequate servicing, access, use compatibility, and demonstration that there's no adverse impacts to the environment or any hazards to human safety. The residential lots proposed, as well as the retained lands, will be serviced with private well and sewage systems, and they front an open road and are compatible with the surrounding land uses. And then the environmental impact study mitigation measures are incorporated into the development through consent agreement, and there's no flooding or any issues to consider these lands hazardous. And the lands are designated settlements in the county official plan. They're designated hamlet in Ramara's official plan, and they're zoned hamlet in Ramara's official plan. And the subject lands were formerly part of 6119 Concession Road, BC, when approval was obtained for the creation of 4 lots from this parcel, which resulted in the creation of Richwood Place. And then, so there was consulting oh my goodness, we're just going to skip that for today. Advised lands were have the potential to support up to 17 lots, and they do recommend a Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks D55 assessment be conducted to confirm groundwater conditions. So this is just basically to ensure that any kind of well depth doesn't affect the neighboring groundwaters. Approval of the subject application is to be conditional on an MECP D55 assessment that demonstrates no adverse water level interference. The lands are mapped as having significant woodlands. So there was an environmental impact study submitted, which concludes they would have a low likelihood of negatively impact any significant natural features or functions, and essentially required that the mitigations recommended in that study are incorporated within a consent agreement. So this consent agreement has been registered with Part 8 as well as Part 9. So as new lots are created, the consent agreement does require that it gets registered on title with the new lots. In terms of the parcel configuration, the proposed and retained lands will each have a land area size of about 1 acre, which does allow adequate room on the properties to construct various types of dwellings, driveway and parking space to comply with the zoning bylaw, septic and well that meets building code setbacks, and remaining land for accessory uses or open space. So they're definitely a good size that are not anticipated to trigger any zoning infractions. The lands are vacant and of a size that allow flexibility within design. And based on the information received and outlined in the staff report, the applications do comply with the PPS 2024 and the County of Simcoe official plan. And it's staff's opinion that the subject applications comply with Ramara official plan as well as Ramara's zoning bylaw. Should the committee find it appropriate to approve the subject consent applications, the following conditions are recommended. 1 is satisfying the requirements of the Township of Ramara, financial or otherwise, including the payment of outstanding taxes and payment of cash in lieu of parkland. 2 is the provisions of a registrable legal descriptions on the parcels to be severed, together with an electronic copy of the applicable reference plan. 3 is submission of a scoped MECP D55 assessment to the Township of Ramara. Actually, I need to fix that. That is not the recommendations. They were updated. So let me just share the actual recommendations here, because it's actually should just be 3. Okay, so we've read the first condition, as well as the second condition of the reference plan and legal description. And then the third condition recommended is submission of the MECP D55 assessment to the satisfaction of the Township of Ramara. The condition was changed just because the consent agreement already applies to the retained lands. So those are the recommended conditions here, just the 3. And I'm going to share my screen again back to the PowerPoint. But essentially, those are the recommended conditions. And the suggested motion is that the committee approves the applications subject to the recommended conditions. And the alternatives would be that the committee defer or otherwise deny the applications.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Rich, do you want to make any more comments on the application or you're good? Okay. Do we have anybody from the public who wishes to speak on this application or in Zoom? Seeing none. Okay, I will move on to the committee members. Member Warren, would you like to start?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Yeah, I looked at the lots. I was there last year when the road was just being developed. It all looks good. Seabright is a growing hamlet, and we do need homes, and these will be nice estate lots because they're large in size. So I have no problem with this. I think it's going to be just good for the community and good for the township in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Truax?
Yeah, I was out and had a look and I have no problem with the application.
Awesome. Member Warren or Walker, sorry.
Yes, I also had a look and I have no concerns.
Perfect. I agree. I can appreciate the lot size. I think they're a appropriate size for the area, and I appreciate that the lot frontages aren't being deficient in any way. So I'm also in favor of the application with the recommended conditions. So I will now put forth the recommended motion as presented on the staff report that the application be approved with the recommended conditions. Moved by Member Truax, second by Member Walker, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Oh,
Consent. Variance first before the consent.
I don't think these ones have variances.
There was no variances. Very good.
Okay. Okay, that's carried. Thank you.
Sorry.
It's okay. Okay, moving on to consent item 4.2 for 4772 and 4774 Cedar Point Lane. Secretary Treasurer.
Discussing the properties Chloe had just mentioned, and the applications were submitted by MHBC Planning. Property owners are Christine Hastings, Gordon Courtney, and Patrick Corner. A consent application has been submitted. Sorry, is there feedback on here? Oh. Can everyone hear me okay now? Amazing. So the consent application has been submitted to request a boundary adjustment for legal and technical reasons to facilitate the reconfiguration of existing lots which have partially merged on title. There's also 2 variance applications submitted with this consent application in order to address deficient lot frontages on the severed as well as retained. So for A17, it's a proposed frontage of 22.2 meters, requiring a variance of 7.8 meters. And then for A18, it's 17 meters, requiring a variance of 13 meters from the required 30-meter lot frontage. In terms of the parcel fabric, so a portion of 4474, which is kind of this portion up here, has merged on title with 4772 Cedar Point Lane, which leaves a single garage and driveway on a separate parcel. So that's part 2. So part 1 has merged into one ownership, with part 2 being now a separate conveyable piece. And there are 2 dwellings and septic systems on part 1, and then the detached garage as mentioned on part 2. So did I skip? No. Here is the existing lot fabrics. You can see the part 2 in the blue, and then we have part 1 is technically this kind of rectangle trapezoid shape. And then we have the proposed lot shapes. Now, the way this angle of this lot line goes down, it does actually it's in alignment with the laneway that's existing there. And then we just see the lot frontages proposed as well. So the applications seek to sever a portion of land from the ownership parcel to merge with the property part 2 that has the single garage and currently services what is known as 774 Cedar Point Lane. So a portion of 4774 Cedar Point Lane is to sever and be merged with part 2. And it's about 983.9 square meters. Resulting in a total land area of 1,258 square meters. And retained lands will maintain an area of around 938.9 square meters. And variances are required to recognize the legal nonconforming lot frontages of the subject lands. The properties are 2 existing lots of record that have been functioning as individual lots for many years. And a portion of the property has merged on title. So the boundary adjustment is necessary to rectify the merger without creating new lots. The property is zoned shoreline residential, which allows for residential uses. And it is staff's opinion that the variances are minor in order to allow for the boundary adjustment, and can be supported under the applicable policies, which includes the county Greenland designation in the county's official plan, and then the shoreline residential designation of Ramara's official plan. PPS does allow for consents for legal and technical reasons. And then the LSPP does allow for lawfully existing uses. In terms of the 4 tests of a minor variance, is the application minor? The existing lots and resulting lots do have less frontage than permitted under the zoning bylaw. The resulting frontages, however, do balance both the lots frontage on Cedar Point Lane, whereas right now 4774 has less of a lot frontage. So this application, although we are reducing the frontages, it is balancing them and increasing one of the frontages. And then, is the application desirable for the appropriate development of the land? The properties continue to operate as 2 separate parcels with 1 dwelling per lot. Based on the actual usage of the property, the fact that the land portions have been merged on title will be rectified by this boundary adjustment. So it's staff's opinion, it is desirable and appropriate for the development of the land and existing buildings and structures. And then in terms of the general intent and purpose of the official plan and minor variance being maintained, the official plan does provide opportunity for boundary adjustments for legal and technical reasons, and existing uses are permitted in the zoning bylaw. Further, the application is not creating any zoning infractions. And then in terms of circulation, we didn't have any concerns. Infrastructure noted it's private road not maintained by the township. LSRCA had no concerns with the application either, and their comments are attached to the staff report. They do request a fee payment as a condition of approval. And then recommendations for this application, should the committee find it appropriate to approve the consent application. The following conditions are recommended in its successful obtainment of approval of minor variance A1724, as well as successful approval of variance file A1824, and confirmation that the setback from all components of the septic system at 4772 Cedar Point Lane to the newly proposed lot line meets setbacks of the Ontario Building Code. So we'll just require that OLS verification. and then satisfying requirements of the township, financial and otherwise, including payment of outstanding taxes. Fifth condition recommended is provision of a registrable legal description on the parcels to be severed together with an electronic copy of the applicable reference plan. And the last condition recommended is a draft transfer prepared by a solicitor for the parcel to be severed and merged with part 2 of plan 51R 29320. Recommendations for minor variance. Should the committee find it appropriate to approve them, the following reasons can be provided, and it's that the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as well as Ramara official plan will be maintained. The variance is desirable and appropriate for the development of the subject lands, and the requested variance is minor in nature. Suggested motion is that the Committee of Adjustment receive report BP 5224 dated November 5th, 2024. That consent file B1124 be approved with the recommended conditions, and that minor variance files A17 and A18 be approved as presented. And the alternatives are that committee could amend the suggested motion or otherwise defer or deny the applications.
Perfect. Thank you. Would any of the applicants like to speak further on the application? Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is James Newlands. I am a planner with MHBC Planning. We are the applicant's agent. My colleague here, Matea, is actually going to give a very quick presentation. It is a very simple application, but we do just want to give a quick couple words, and then we're here happy to answer any questions if there are any. So thank you very much.
Am I able just to share my screen? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So good morning, Chair Black, committee members, township staff, and members of the community. My name is Matea Schaap. I'm currently enrolled as an undergraduate planning student at the University of Waterloo, and I'm the student planner with MHBC. We have been retained by Christine Hastings, Patrick Corner, and Gordon Courtney to act as their planners for the severance and minor variance applications for the property at 4772 and 4774 Cedar Point Lane. We are joined today by Mr. Courtney, and Ms. Hastings and Mr. Corner are available online. I'm also here with my colleague James Newlands, who's a registered professional planner with MHBC. I would like to take the opportunity to thank township staff for their hard work on this application, in particular Jennifer Stong and Carissa Barker. This is a straightforward application, and Ms. Barker did a great job covering a majority of my speaking notes, so I won't take up much of your time. This presentation will provide a quick overview of the application to date, and James and I are available to answer any questions you may have on this application. The existing property contains 2 dwellings, is located on Lake Simcoe, and has access via private right-of-way off of Cedar Point Lane. The subject property is within one ownership parcel owned by the owners. However, each dwelling is on its own separate assessment parcel and its own roll number. As depicted in the figure on the screen, the dwellings are situated within the red area above, where the southern dwelling is known as 4772 Cedar Point Lane, and the northern dwelling is 4774 Cedar Point Lane. There's also an adjacent smaller property that is part of this application and is located northeast of the subject property, which is outlined in green, and is under the ownership of Christine Hastings and Patrick Corner. This property contains a garage and driveway access for 4774 Cedar Point Lane. The subject property is within the built-up shoreline residential area, is designated Greenlands in the County of Simcoe official plan, and is designated in zone shoreline residential and Township of Ramara official plan and zoning bylaw. The consent application proposes a lot boundary adjustment to facilitate the reconfiguration of the existing lots. A severance sketch has been prepared and is projected on the screen above, which shows the proposed lot boundary adjustment. The proposed lot boundary line follows the configuration of Cedar Point Lane right-of-way, existing driveway, and existing septic bed location for the retained property. It is understood that a survey will need to be completed at a later date as a condition of consent. This slide depicts the final proposed lot configuration. The southern lot will be the retained property, and the northern lot will be the severed, which will be merged with the adjacent separately owned property. The important piece for the committee to remember is that this application seeks to facilitate a lot boundary adjustment to reconfigure the existing lots in their respective boundaries. As a result, no net new developable lot is being created, nor will it result in the addition of any new buildings on the property. Policy analysis was conducted to prepare a planning justification letter, and we are of the opinion that the applications present good planning as the severance application is consistent with the newly adopted provincial planning statement, conforms with this Lake Simcoe protection plan, county and township official plans, and will comply with the township zoning bylaw subject to the approval of the minor variance applications. In order to facilitate the severance, 2 minor variance applications are required for each parcel to allow for reduced lot frontage on each property. The zoning bylaw requires a minimum of 30 meters lot frontage in the shoreline residential zone. Therefore, for the retained lot, the variance proposes relief of 13 meters to facilitate a reduced minimum lot frontage of 17 meters. And for the severed lot, the variance proposes relief for 7.8 meters to facilitate a reduced minimum lot frontage of 22.2 meters. We've completed a policy analysis and are of the opinion that the minor variance applications meet the 4 tests of a minor variance, as a proposed application maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan, maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, is desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, and is minor in nature. Thus far, we have received comments from the LSRCA regarding these applications, and they have no concerns subject to the payment of review fees. Our client has been in contact with the LSRCA to make this payment. I would like to thank everyone for allowing me the opportunity to provide an overview of the application. The applicant has no concerns with the township staff's recommendation, and James and I are happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Questions? No. Okay. Is there anybody on Zoom or in the public that wish to speak? Seeing none, okay, I will open it up to the committee members. Member Truax, would you like to start?
Yeah, I was down and had a look at the properties, and I see no problem with what they want to accomplish here, so I'm good.
Perfect. Member Walker?
I also was at the property, got a chance to meet the neighbor. He came over quite quick to find out why I was there. And once I told him, he said he was in full support of this, and that the owners had kept him up to date on what's going on. So that's great. And that was a great presentation, and I have no concerns.
Perfect. And Member Warren?
Sliding it on. I saw the property on Sunday, both properties. It's a little hard to visualize when you look at the properties, what land belonged to where and like that, but the sketch really shows you, ties it in. There's no new lots being created. It's just sort of basically a land swap. So I'm basically in favor of the variances and the consent portion of the application. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. If anything, I think it's making it better, even though there are deficiencies. My only question, I believe, for you, Carissa, policy wise, the septic verification, because it's so tight, like there's less than a foot. I think it's 3 meters is the max or minimum for the septic to the property line.
I believe, yeah, it's
Yeah.
3 meters in the building
If
code.
they get the septic verification and it fails, like let's say it's too close, it's actually like 2.9 meters, what happens policy wise?
I believe that potentially we could look at amending the conditions, or they might have to come back to committee. But the surveyor setback is to confirm that we're meeting building code setbacks, because there's no variance for that.
Okay.
So
If it does fail and comes back to us, is there like an additional fee that they would have to pay at all? I'm just wondering if it's better to defer the application and let them complete that before, or if it's better to approve it and take the chance that it fails.
it's completely up to the committee. Ultimately, actually, I think, James, do you want to speak further to Chloe's question? Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Madam Chair. the survey that needs to be done has to be in, I can't remember the exact wording, but it's general conformity or consistency with the sketch you see.
Okay.
So if it comes back that we're at 2.9, let's say, we need that extra 0.1. There, I would hope the township would see this too, is we have the flexibility that if we are still meeting the general intent of what we're trying to achieve, what you're hopefully going to approve here today. If we still meet the general intent of that, and it's not exactly the same,
Mhm.
that it's still okay.
Perfect. Okay. That's all I wanted to know. Amazing. All right. So if there's no further comments, do we have to vote on the A17 and A18 separately, or can it all be
So
enveloped?
we'll do it under one motion, and then when we actually send the decisions, they'll be separate, but for the
Okay.
motion, it's fine to be under one.
Perfect. So the recommended motion as presented on the staff report that the application be approved with the recommended conditions, moved by member Warren, second by member Walker, all in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you so much. Okay, moving forward with item agenda 4.3 for 2268 Lakeshore Drive. Madam Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you. So we'll review this application A13, which was submitted by Christine Kaiser Reed, owner, as well as agent, Good Read Planning Group. A minor variance application was submitted to request relief from the flood elevation provisions included within the destination commercial exception to zoning bylaw amendment, completed through file Z320, finalized in 2023. As the LSRCA updated their shoreline hazard limit data in 2024, a minor variance to Ramara's zoning bylaw is required to ensure that any placement of trailers on site satisfies the new hazard limit requirements of the Conservation Authority. So we're basically varying the regulatory flood elevation, which was 220.33 meters above sea level. For both the erection and placement of trailers or on camping lots, as well as where fill is placed to meet the elevation to the satisfaction of the LSRCA, that the underside of each recreational trailer is at a minimum elevation of 220.63. So basically they've changed the regulatory from 220.33 to 219.8. So, and then we need to vary also the provision for the underside of the recreational trailer. So essentially it's a variance of 0.53 meters above sea level, but it's more clerical to satisfy the LSRCA. So the lot hosts a seasonal trailer park establishment within the destination commercial exception 2 zone. A portion of the lands known as the redevelopment area or redevelopment lands did obtain a zoning bylaw amendment. And when circulated the zoning amendment for review, LSRCA did request the minimum flood elevation values to be included within the site-specific zoning. Therefore, the township included those provisions within the zoning bylaw amendment approved in 2023. The amendment included allowing for the erection and placement of recreational trailers on camping lots on lands above the regulatory flood elevation of 220.33 meters above sea level. So when circulated the site plan control application, which is kind of the next application after a zoning bylaw amendment, the zoning bylaw amendment's more preliminary to allow for the zoning to happen. And then site plan control is actually reviewing all of the studies and designs and materials. So when LSRCA reviewed this year, they did advise that they have new shoreline hazard limit data. So they can't approve the elevation required in the zoning bylaw. So a minor variance is required to recognize this change to meet their new flood regulatory elevation. So apart the changed elevations, the proposal meets the site-specific zoning of the property. The site has obtained conditional approval of the site plan control application. And the conditions include the final clearance from the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, a site plan agreement to be entered into and registered on title, and as well the successful obtainment of this minor variance application. And we just have the site plan here, kind of hard to see because it's quite detailed, but just showing the elevation being varied. In terms of policy, the property is rural and county's official plan, County Simcoe official plan, and designated destination commercial in Ramara's official plan. And the PPS, the application does comply with the PPS, which requires that the township collaborate with conservation authorities to manage development in any kind of hazardous sites to ensure provincial guidelines are met. And in terms of the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, the project does comply. It was reviewed against it during the zoning bylaw amendment, as well as site plan control, and the proposal has been shown to conform. In terms of the variance for test, the variance is minor. We're essentially recognizing flood elevation values provided by the LSRCA. Is the application desirable for the appropriate development of the land? Yes, varying the flood elevations to comply with LSRCA requirements is desirable for the appropriate development to ensure that the development does not create any kind of flood hazards. And then in terms of the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw, as the value changes are originating from new data provided by the Conservation Authority, the general intent and purpose of both the official plan and zoning bylaw are maintained. It's staff's opinion that the four tests have been satisfied. And in terms of circulation, no concerns from Ramara departments. We did receive correspondence on the 24th advising no concerns and that they'd be sending formal comments, but we just haven't received them as of yet. But once we do, we will forward along to applicant and committee and anybody who would require them. Other than that, in terms of this application, the suggested motion is that the Committee of Adjustment receives report BP 5324 dated November 5th, 2024. And that variance file A1324 be approved as presented. And the alternatives are the committee could amend the suggested motion or otherwise defer or deny the applications.
Perfect, thank you. Would the applicant or the agent like to speak further?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm Brian. So.
Yeah, there's a button. The big long one, yeah. Yep.
Hi, I'm Brian Goodread. I'm a consulting planner, and I've acted for Point of Mara in connection with securing a zoning bylaw amendment approval. We're working on site plan approval with the municipality right now, and also to bring forward the minor variance application. Perhaps I could just ask you to put up the PowerPoint presentation if I could. So I'm not sending back to anybody. Yeah, in terms of, today we're just dealing with the minor variance application. So next slide. In terms of an application overview, we note that the Conservation Authority advised in May 2024 the new mapping of shoreline hazards for Lake Simcoe were available and provide for an elevation of 219.8 MASL, that's meters above sea level, plus a 5-meter horizontal setback rather than the 220.33 meters above sea level that's in the zoning bylaw right now. and a minimum elevation up for the underside of the trailer would be 220.1 MASL versus the current 220.63 MASL that's contained in the zoning bylaw as amended. The proposed minor variance is for phase 2 and will seek relief from the current regulatory flood elevation, but only within the trailer park redevelopment area of the DC2 zone. And it would take it from 220.33 MASL to 219. It should say 0.8 MASL plus the 5-meter horizontal setback. And secondly, to reduce the minimum elevation of the underside of trailers from 220.63 MASL to 220.1 MASL as determined by the Conservation Authority. These two variances changes will limit the importation of fill and reduce site impact, and no other variations are required to the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. Just by way of background, in terms of the site and surrounding land uses, the subject site is comprised of 2 parcels, namely a 2.4 hectare parcel on the east side of Lakeshore Drive and a 1.89 hectare parcel on the west side of that roadway. The 2.4 hectare parcel has 54 existing seasonal trailer sites, and the 1.89 hectare parcel has 22 seasonal sites with an additional 24 sites to be developed in accordance with the site plan approval that we're currently seeking from the municipality. The surrounding land uses to the north are shoreline residential, to the east agricultural, and to the south, once again, shoreline residential. Next slide, please. This slide is the consolidated site plan that's going through the site plan approval process at the present time. And the minor variances only pertain to the trailer park redevelopment area delineated by a red line on that site plan. And the new trailers are restricted to this area. And the table on the site plan shows the minor variance changes being sought. And there's a cross through there just to in the lower right corner of the of that site plan drawing, which highlight where the changes are to be made through the minor variances. Next slide, please. Now, some of this has been covered already, but I'll just put my spin on it. There are 4 tests of minor variance under the Planning Act. That's section 45 of the Planning Act to be satisfied. First, the minor variance application must maintain the intent and purpose of the county and township official plans. Second, the minor variance application must maintain the intent and purpose of the township zoning bylaw. Third, the form of development must be appropriate. And fourth, and finally, the minor variance must be minor. Next slide, please. This is an excerpt of Schedule 5.1, land use designations of the Simcoe County official plan. And the location of the subject site is identified on this drawing with a green arrow. Now, next slide, please. In terms of the county Simcoe official plan, the subject site is designated as rural in the county OP. The county official plan states that the permitted uses in the rural designation include resource-based recreational activities, including recreational dwellings. And the existing and proposed uses at Point Amera are permitted by the county official plan. The proposed development does not adversely affect the agricultural activities and or protection or impact natural heritage features. The siting of the proposed trailers are to be planned in a shoreline context and to minimize any impact on water and risk of flooding. And these particular matters have been addressed through the zoning bylaw amendment approval process. and also are being dealt with through site plan approvals, which are currently underway. And the minor variance maintains, in our opinion, the intent and purpose of the county official plan. Next. This slide is an excerpt of Schedule A to the Township of Ramara official plan. In this case, the subject lands are identified with a green arrow. Next slide, please. In the Township of Ramara official plan, the subject plans identified in the previous slide are designated destination commercial in the township official plan. And the permitted uses include tourist accommodation, uses such as seasonal tent and trailer camp and park. The existing and proposed uses at Point of Mara are permitted in the destination commercial designation. The policies of the township official plan include criterion for the establishment or expansion and redevelopment of a seasonal tent or trailer park or camp. The proposed minor variance maintains the intent and purpose of the official plan, in our opinion. Next slide, please. This slide is an excerpt of the zoning bylaw, township zoning bylaw for, and it is map number 6 that we're looking at. The DC2 zone and the trailer park redevelopment area are identified for Point of Mara. The redevelopment area, of course, is identified by a red line within the zoning schedule. Next slide, please. In terms of the Township of Ramara zoning bylaw, 2005-85 is amended. A seasonal camping establishment is a permitted use within the destination commercial zone. Subject lands were previously approved for rezoning to DC2 in 2000, and that permitted the year-round storage of a maximum of 22 trailers with a camping establishment, within a camping establishment. That was phase 1. And in 2023, an additional 24 trailers, being phase 2, were permitted in the trailer park redevelopment area. The proposed minor variance maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw of 2005-85 as amended, in our opinion. Next slide. In terms of meeting the variance for tests, in our opinion, the proposed variances meet the intent and purpose of the county and township official plans and the township zoning bylaw. The relief sought will satisfy the regulatory flood elevation of Lake Simcoe, and as such, tests 1 and 2 are satisfied, in our opinion. The trailer park resort is an appropriate form of development supported by official plan and zoning bylaw. And the variants sought are only intended to properly reflect the new regulatory flood elevation. Therefore, the third test is satisfied. The variances will seek relief from the regulatory flood elevation to take into account new mapping and elevations provided by the Conservation Authority. In our opinion, the variances are minor and test 4 is satisfied. Next slide, please. In summary and in conclusion, it's our opinion as planners that the variances sought to the zoning bylaw maintain the general intent and purpose. It's a general intent and purpose. And in terms of the county and township official plans, the intent and purposes is also maintained through the variances. The variances sought will result in an appropriate form of trailer park development. And finally, the variances sought are truly minor in nature. Thank you very much. If there's any questions, I'd be very happy to
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there anybody in the public or on Zoom that wishes to speak more? Seeing none, open it up. Member Walker, would you like to start?
Thanks for that presentation. I did a site visit, sign was out. I read all the reports and I have no concerns.
Okay, Member Truax.
I too have no concerns with the application, please minor variance, basically is what it is. Thank you.
Okay, and Member Warren. Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one question. What they're doing is they're lowering out basically a half a meter, aren't they, from what they originally had used as a, this would be a flood mark, would it be that they were?
That's correct.
Yeah.
They changed the regulatory flood elevation based on new mapping and analyses.
So
And it's less impactful with less.
it definitely is. I'm just curious, do you know exactly what the average high water mark of Lake Simcoe is in meters?
I'm checking as well.
Probably putting a lot of work. I just curiosity. I mean, no problem with the application.
Mhm.
It does seem to be somewhat onerous on the owner to have to go through a variance after they change their mapping type of thing.
Yeah. Well, we're not changing the average annual high water.
Yeah.
Mm.
That hasn't changed, but just the regulatory flood elevation that has changed, so.
So when I drive in the laneway there at the property, that's gonna be well below what they require then.
I think it's 219.5
to
is the
19.5.
average annual high water mark. And the 15-meter setback from it for any trailer is from the average annual high water mark. And on the site plan, the 15-meter setback from the average high water mark is the trailer park redevelopment area that's delineated at the east side of the site.
Okay.
So that hasn't changed. But in terms of the regulatory flood elevation, that has changed. And that dictates the amount of fill that has to be imported to take
To meet that level.
those sites out of the floodplain. So there's a couple of numbers there, but that's how they relate to.
Anyways, I just was curious about that because Lake Simcoe is basically controlled anyways, so I mean, even in 100-year flood, I think it would still be hard to get to that elevation. Guess they have their mapping and they have their figures that they work on it. But in any case, just a few questions I was curious about, and I have no problem with the application at all. As I say, it just means the owner has to go through a few more hoops to get what you need to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
And frankly, we could have gone ahead, put the additional fill in, but it's more impactful. So we thought, well, it's also more expensive.
Yeah.
So why incur an expense and why have more impact on a site when it's not necessary? So that's why the variance is.
Okay, well, thank you for your information, sir. Anyways.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't have any issues as well. It's like it was presented. It's more of a clerical thing than anything. And it seems like due diligence has been done to make sure that this new level is appropriate. So I'm in favor as well. So I'll put forth the recommendation to approve the application as presented. Moved by Tom, second by Member Warren. All in favor? And that motion's carried. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Good luck with the rest.
I think we're getting closer.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay, moving forward to item 4.4, minor variance file A1424 for 3778 Neely Point Lane.
For this location, the application file A1424 has been submitted by Jim Donaldson, as well as is owned by Jim Donaldson and Catherine Donaldson. A minor variance application has been submitted to request relief from the minimum interior side yard setback to recognize the location of a garage currently under construction through building permit B-2022-61. Ontario Land Surveyor setback verification was required to be submitted as part of the construction phase of the building permit. It did confirm that the garage was actually placed 1.32 meters to the interior side yard lot line, opposed to the 1.5 meter setback required under the zoning bylaw. Therefore, we're seeking a variance of 0.18 meters. And then here is the site plan and just the garage highlighted, which was proposed at a 1.53 and in fact has been determined to be a 1.32 meter setback. So the eastern interior side yard setback to the subject garage, as mentioned, was proposed at 1.53 meters, and that complied with the zoning bylaw at time of approval. Part of requirements of the building permit work and construction stage. Building department does require land surveyor setback confirmation to be provided at foundation stage if development is proposed in close proximity to a required yard to ensure the approved setbacks are met. And just to kind of branch out a bit, for this type of garage, the inspections are footings, framing, and final. So although the footings were good and they were okay to pour, building needed the setback confirmation first, but unfortunately that came back not in the results, that was anticipated. So in order for the garage open permit to be closed, building department does need to verify successful lot grading, as well as zoning compliance. So the 1.32 meter setback does allow sufficient space for proper drainage swale along the edge of the property. Staff are of the opinion that the relief request sought to allow the existing location of the detached garage is minor at a 0.18 variance. And can be supported as the overall intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained. The property is designated rural and greenlands in the County of Simcoe official plan and is designated shoreline residential in Ramara's official plan. Section 2 of the PPS 2024 allows for residential uses where appropriate conditions and servicing is established. Property is is part of an existing residential block along the shoreline of Lake Simcoe. The construction of the detached garage does align with the existing character of the area. And in terms of LSPP compliance, the proposal was reviewed against the LSPP during the zoning grading review of the house. Actually, the garage was on that plan and it does comply with the LSPP. In terms of the 4 tests of a minor variance, is it minor? In staff's opinion, yes, the request for a 7-inch variance off the required provision. We don't anticipate this alteration causing issues with to allow for the garage remaining location to exist. In terms of appropriate development of the land and is this desirable? I believe that the application is desirable for the appropriate development. It would be quite costly to tear up the existing work in order to move it over 7 inches. If the committee finds it appropriate to approve the variance, I do, in my opinion, think it is minor and all other zoning provisions are met and the use complies with both zoning and the official plan. So the intent of both those documents are maintained in the application. And in terms of circulation, building department had no concerns. And then LSRCA does not have any concerns with the application. They do request the LSRCA plan review fee to be paid, and their comments are attached to the staff report for the application. In terms of recommendations, should the committee find it appropriate to approve this minor variance application, the following condition is recommended to be added to the approval, and it's that the variance pertains only to the request as submitted with the application. The suggested motion is that the Committee of Adjustment receive report BP 4924, published the November 5th, 2024 meeting agenda, and that minor variance application A1424 be approved with a recommended condition. And the alternatives are that the committee could amend the suggested motion or otherwise deny or defer the applications.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak further on the application or no? Okay. Is there anybody on Zoom or in the public that would like to speak more?
I'm
Nope.
not seeing any.
Okay, open it up. Member Warren.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just one question. Was the sign posted at the end of the street there? I didn't see a sign in front of the building. This would be at the end of Muley Point Lane.
I don't remember seeing this sign, but.
This were the foundation.
It's on the post.
Oh, I see.
Which could read it.
Mm-mm.
Well, see, these new signs have
I drove by it.
mixed me up because they're not as visible as the old ones, I'll tell you that much. That was one comment I was gonna make. Any case, oh. Anyways, that's problem solved. Now, it's unfortunate. I assume this was just a contractor error. When that was, yeah, and we have run into this on a number of occasions where a minor variance, and of course that puts the expense on the owner and everything else to rectify it, as well as being Lake Simcoe, the Conservation Authority want their 2 bits worth too. Yeah, if it's too bad in a way, because I was looking for survey stakes. If there'd been some survey stakes that they could have took that off of, they would have been, pardon me? Yeah, but I mean, I couldn't see them, but they, yeah. And they didn't take measurements from that line, and that's unfortunate. Any case, it's a nice looking foundation. It's certainly not, it certainly is not going to be torn up, but it does cost you the matter of the minor variance, so I'm completely in favor of it anyways. So thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Member Truex.
Yes, I have no problem with the application.
Okay, and Member Walker.
Yeah, same, I have no concerns.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm in agreement. It is unfortunate. We're not at the point where it's the 1.2 where extra fire protection from the building code comes in and the infrastructure has issues with drainage. So I definitely agree that it's minor in nature and appropriate. So I'm also in favor. So I will put forth the recommendation that this be presented as presented or approved as presented. Like moved by Member Walker, second by Member Warren, all in favor? And that's carried. Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, I think they're 10 days, 10 days.
There's an appeal period technically.
Yeah.
Not technically, there is an appeal period. So the sign will just stay on the property for the appeal period. I can definitely email you. We can touch base further if you have any questions. 20 days under the Planning Act.
Perfect. Good luck. All right, last application. Item 4.5 for 2598 Lakeshore Drive.
Okay, thanks for your patience. We're discussing file A1624 2598 Lakeshore Drive. Owner and applicant is Connie Bianca. A minor variance application has been submitted, requesting relief from the minimum interior side yard and high watermark provisions to permit the placement of an existing 10 square meter accessory shed. the proposal will require the following variances to Ramara zoning bylaw, and that is variances to the interior side yard setback. And they're requesting a 0.6 meter variance to allow for a 0.6 meter setback to the interior side yard, and a proposed 6.6 meter setback to the high water mark, requiring a variance of 8.4 meters. The application site plan is on screen, just showing the shed in relation to the dwelling and setbacks. In terms of policies, the property is designated settlement in County of Simcoe official plan, and the lands are designated village in Ramara's official plan. And then in terms of the PPS 2024, the subject set does not impact any potential flood hazards. The property is partially within the floodplain of the LSRCA. But this shed, there's no human habitation, and the shed is placed on existing concrete slab, which should not impact further any of the flood flows. And then in terms of the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, designated policy 6.4 outlines that development within the vegetative protection zone. The vegetative protection zone is 30 meters in the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, but it says that development may be permitted within the vegetative protection zone if there's no alternative location, the areas occupied by such structure is minimized, that the ecological function of the vegetative protection zone is maintained, and where possible to use pervious materials and design. The existing dwelling on the property does encroach the high water mark, and due to the location of the sewage system and small size of the lot, there is limited space to place the shed without encroaching the high water mark. In terms of the property's existing characteristics, the existing dwelling encroaches the front yard setback, and due to the small size of the lot, only a holding tank is able to fit on the property. And so the front yard is completely taken up by the holding tank and driveway. So we really wouldn't be able to, the owners wouldn't be able to include a shed in the front yard. It would trigger non-compliance with the building code. And so in terms of the interior side yard setback on the other lot line to the west, because the existing dwelling is 3.61 meters from the west interior lot line, and the zoning bylaw requires accessory buildings be at least 1.8 meters from the main building for fire separation. And given the length of the shed is approximately 10 feet, if you were to place the shed on the west lot line, then you really wouldn't have much wiggle room between the house or the neighboring lot line. So you would have about 0.562 meters of space between the lot line and the shed and the house. So it's staff's opinion that proposing the shed, relocating it there would not be suitable for the use and function of the property. In terms of high watermark setback in the east interior side yard, which the requested variance is, the requested location of the existing shed. Staff are of the opinion that specific to this property, the placement of the shed is not improper. The existing dwelling does encroach high water mark setback and into east interior lot line. Due to the existing construction of the property, a new shed triggers a minor variance to either of or both of these provisions. With the location of the stairs off the rear decking and use of the patio, the location of the shed to the side lot line is more desirable for the overall use and function of the property. And it's placed on top of existing patio, so we're not further disturbing the natural ground within the vegetative protection zone. And in terms of drainage, I'm just going to move this Zoom chat box over my text here. You probably can't see that. In consideration of property drainage, an eaves trough should be installed to the part of the shed running adjacent to the neighboring lot line to direct any water runoff from the shed roof away from the neighboring property. Although the shed does not trigger a building permit under the building code, the installation of the eaves trough should assist with drainage to ensure it remains within the subject lot boundaries to not exacerbate drainage issues to neighboring lands. In terms of circulation, no concerns were relayed by Ramara departments, and the LSRCA had no concerns with the application. In terms of the application, the request of variances to the high water mark and east interior side yard setback in staff's opinion is appropriate. It's kept within the lot's boundaries on top of existing patio slab. No human habitation is proposed. The natural vegetation separating this property from the neighboring lot line to the south that abuts the lot's east interior side yard, and the shed could be moved temporarily if work needed to occur in the area. In terms of the approval of this application, should the committee find it appropriate to approve, the following reasons can be provided, and it's that the general intent and purpose of both the Ramara zoning bylaw and official plan will be maintained, and the requested variance is desirable for the appropriate development of the subject lands. And in staff's opinion, this requested variance is minor in nature. Should the committee find it appropriate to approve this minor variance application, the following conditions are recommended. And this is that the variance pertains only to the request as submitted with the application for recognition of the location of one 9.3 square meter shed. I believe earlier in the presentation, I said 10 square meters, but as shown on the site plan, it is 9.3 square meters total. So I just wanted to clarify that for condition 1. Condition 2 is that the installation of plumbing to the subject shed be prohibited, which is to add on to condition 3 that human habitation within the subject shed be prohibited. And then the 4th condition is an eaves trough be installed within 3 months to the part of the shed running adjacent the east interior lot line, directing water runoff from the shed away from the neighboring lot line. And the suggested motion is that the Committee of Adjustment receive report BP 5024 published to the November 5th, 2024 meeting agenda, and that minor variance application A1624 be approved with the recommended conditions. The alternatives are that the committee could amend the suggested motion or otherwise deny or defer the application.
Thank you. Good morning. Would you like to speak further to the application? Oh. Okay, fair enough. Okay, is there anybody on Zoom?
Yes,
Okay,
we are the adjacent owners. One
okay.
second.
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, it's Kelly Moriyama, 2596 Lakeshore Drive. In terms of the shed location that did have power and plumbing running to it is in fact on our property line. With regards to the drawing and what the requirement of 1.2 meters, the cement and the shed are less than 11 inches from the property line. When you talk about a pre-existing shed poured on a cement pad, that cement pad was poured 4.5 months, and the shed was built and constructed on that cement pad in that location, which is obvious that the shed was positioned and they deviated from what they submitted. Submitting what is in compliance and building it and asking for forgiveness later is simply not acceptable. It seems to be that's a pattern that I'm seeing. In fact, the last one where they built a garage and they were out of compliance, it's simply asking for forgiveness later. This shed, so close to the water, certainly less than 24 feet, is a significant concern. We've been up there for over 50 years on that property, and we see what the ice does when it comes in. It would pick up that tiny shed like it has done to docks and other patio structures, and it could conceivably push that into our cottage. There is also a height requirement, as I understand. And this shed is well beyond 3 meters high. This thing is 13.4 inches high, and it completely obstructs 15 to 20% of our view when we walk out of our cottage. When we walk out on the back deck, which has it's approved, and from Lake Simcoe Conservation through Ramara through our permits. When we walk out of our deck, when we look out of our back window, it is completely obstructed by this shed that has plumbing and electrical running to it. The cement pad is, like I said, 9 to 11 inches from the actual property line. The shed was tacked on and bolted down to the cement pad 3 inches from where the edge of the cement pad is poured. That is my biggest significant issue. The ice coming in and taking that thing, the terminology used of placing an existing shed or locating it, it was done concurrently, along with power and plumbing. So there had to have been some agenda in order to run plumbing and electrical underneath up into that poured cement pad that is way too close to the lake to begin with, and certainly too close to our property. I have an issue with the separation, the distance between our cottage and their cottage. If we're in compliance to the property line with our deck, our height, the position of our cottage, we expect to have that as useful land. And when we have a shed that is infringing on that property line, that's a concern moving forward. Should we decide to move, or we decide to do some form of a renovation? Because having that obstruction and that 13-foot plus height right tight on our property line is extremely concerning. If it was within 1.2 meters and it was in compliance, if the height was in compliance, we'd likely not have this conversation. And our view would not be obstructed. And our property line would not be infringed upon.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Is there anybody else on Zoom, Carissa?
I'm just going to take a look right now. I see a Mary on Zoom.
Hi, yes, it's Mary. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear you.
Hi, yes. Sorry, I'm just here for an upcoming, I'm not sure where we're at in the meeting, sorry.
We're just hearing the 2598 Lakeshore application and hearing public comment. So you're definitely, if you're speaking to that application, you're at good timing.
Oh, yes, yes, I'm here for this application. Sorry, can you update me? My apologies for joining late.
That's okay. Essentially, through the chair, it just we have heard the application from staff, and then committee just asked applicant for any questions as well as comments from public. There was a neighboring comment, and then we just saw you pop up as well.
Okay, what was the neighboring comment? Sorry.
I would say there's a few concerns outlined. So I don't want to speak on behalf of your neighbor, but essentially there were concerns with plumbing electricity, height, setback encroachment, obstruction of view. I'm not sure if, let me just see on Zoom.
Okay.
But if you had any comments regarding the application that you'd like to share with the committee, then you are more than welcome to now.
Yes, if you have
I
any,
don't have any further comments. I read through the report. So I don't have any further comments with regards to the report that was provided.
okay. Yeah, are you a neighbor? Like, or are you? Okay,
I'm a
okay.
family member, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, I will open it up to the committee then for comment. Member Warren, would you like to start? I do, yeah.
Put me in the hot seat. Well, first thing when I went to look at this application, I realized, of course, we're here because the building is a building that did not require a permit because of the size. However, because all buildings, regardless of size, got to meet the zoning provisions of the township, and which this one doesn't meet, and that's why I assume Ms. Bianca is here today. The comments that the neighbor made, he made comments to the fact that that it was actually on his property. Well, it's still, he said the cement was 9 inches in from the property line, and like to that, I can't justify those comments. However, height wise, is there a height restriction for an accessory building? That's the question I ask.
Yes, so there is a height restriction of 3 meters. Zoning bylaw, it would be from the average grade of ground to the mid peak of the roof.
Stand, yes.
Now I was out to do a site visit, and I had received comment of concern regarding the height. Therefore, I did bring my measuring tape to measure the height. Due to the awkwardness of it, I just measured to the fully to the top. But it was definitely even to the top of the roof within the 3 meters.
That's to the very peak you're talking
Yeah,
about.
but the zoning bylaw is the
It's
midpoint.
midway. I understand how that works.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then further, I just wanted to note that bylaw enforcement had been out to the property, and the building department was out to the property. Deputy building official was out August 27th and advised there's no plumbing within the shed. So no permit required, she noted. However, zoning setback supply, and but I just wanted to confirm that building did do a site inspection to verify that there wasn't any plumbing, because that would be would require a permit.
I can see a water line and electrical line going to a building, because you might want to have a garden hose, 2 electric tools and like that you need to use. As long as there's no plumbing fixtures, that's the key word right off the, and that's what I mean, that the neighbor was saying about plumbing and electrical. I think that's a non-issue, as long as there's no fixtures. As far as the no one has a right to a view. We went through this many times before. So I put all these factors in place, and I know that for Ms. Bianca, this, if you don't want to move it, this is the only route that you can take, is to go through a minor variance. So the way it stands right now, I'm not objecting to it at all. That's my feeling anyway. So I'll let the rest of the members have their say, and then we can maybe form a decision afterwards. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Cut. Ms. Bianca?
Ms. Bianca, you better come to the
Yeah.
mic, and it'll be recorded then. And your daughter can correct you if necessary. It's just a big button.
Okay. No, it's not, it's lying. Okay, it's not affecting his view. Because they usually, set on the front of the lake. and it's not affecting. And we don't have any water, it's just electric, okay? We storage stuff like, like the things that the kids need, but it's got nothing to do with this. I'm so upset.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments. And would,
Yeah, are you used to being chair? Yeah. Um, Mary, would you like to speak further on anything or are you okay?
No, I'm okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, perfect.
All good.
Member Truax, would you like to say some comments? Mike.
As it looks, I didn't get the opportunity to go out, honestly, to have a look at the property. So but as the application was read and that if the building department, people have been out there and measured things, I have no issue with it as it stands.
Okay, Member Walker?
I'm the same. I think if the township has gone out there and measured and they've had other departments going out, I can see where having your view obstructed has always been a concern for people, but as you said, they need a shed. They have no place else to put it. So I have no problems.
Okay, I'm in agreement. I think that if the height's been confirmed and it's not in contravention, then there's only so much you can do in terms of a view. I also think that everyone's entitled to a shed for storage, and it's not like it's a huge shed. It's under the requirement of needing a building permit, so it is quite small, really. I would say that my only question would be, in terms of the eaves trough, where did the 3 months come from? Was that presented by the building department or?
It was more just to have a timeline to it because we wanted to capture the drainage component.
Yeah.
The committee can alter the recommended condition if and as they see fit.
That's what I wanted to ask. Is 3 months enough time for you to install eaves troughs with winter coming, or would you need more time? Okay. Okay, so I'm okay with that then. Any
Yes,
more?
we're okay with that.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So I guess I will put forth the recommended motion that the application be approved with the recommended commission or conditions. So moved by Member Warren, second by Member Truax. All in favor? And that motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No. Yes, it's okay. Have a great day. Okay, moving on to section 5, adoption of minutes. The draft minutes from October 1st meeting. Did everyone have a chance to read them? Any omissions or changes? Okay. Seeing none, can I have a motion that the draft minutes from October 1st meeting be approved as presented? Moved by Member Walker, second by Member Truax. All in favor? That motion's carried. And then item 6, unfinished or new business. We have a couple of items today. So item 6.1 is an implementation of a quarterly policy session. So a 20-minute policy session immediately following the Committee of Adjustment meeting on a quarterly basis. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I know at our last meeting, we touched on that of implementing some policy training sessions. And so it's just being proposed at a quarterly basis. The proposed months we're thinking would be this coming December meeting. And then for the 2025 year would be February, May, August, and November meetings. I have made like a Committee of Adjustment 2025 schedule, that if you agree with those months as the policy session dates, then you guys have kind of like a schedule specific to you, and I'll email out a version of that. But if the committee, when we're approving the meeting schedule, if you want to change any of those proposed training months of February, May, August, and November, we could definitely just move the session if needed.
Okay. Any comments, questions? No?
Okay.
I had a question. Would this be in a close, or would it be like in an extension of the meeting and be like, would we adjourn first and then
Yes.
do it? Okay.
Yes.
And then would we kind of just send you ideas that we have along the quarter to,
You can certainly do that. We have
or will
a
you
few,
prepare?
we have a few things, a few ideas in mind. I know for the December meeting, kind of wanted to touch on PPS 2024, and then kind of just wanted to confirm certain aspects of zoning and grading review and site plan control, and just certain aspects, just because we don't always see the full details of exactly those processes. So I thought that might be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So if the committee is in agreements with the implementing the court policy sessions on a quarterly basis, then that's great.
Perfect. Okay, then item 6.2. So we have the proposed 2025 meeting schedule in front of us. Has everybody had a chance to review it? Any changes made, or everyone's in agreement with it? Perfect. So that's great. And then does anybody have anything to add to the newer unfinished business? Nope. I wanted to bring up one thing since member McMillan is missing. I know in our training that we did at Horseshoe Valley, we noticed that a lot of municipalities have the chair sit out when there's a even number of members, due to the fact that like a tied vote means defeat. So I wanted to ask, like, our procedure bylaws that everyone just stays, right?
Yeah,
Or
so
votes.
basically, if the non-decision can be reached under the Planning Act, then it does, if there's a tied vote, then it means no decision, so the application's refused. But in some township procedure bylaws or rules, they have, where the chair could abstain from vote. So that's something I think this is my opinion on it. There's benefits to it. I think it would be more beneficial like if it was a larger committee, because then,
You're not
there's
down
more
to
of a
three.
even
Yeah.
disagreements, whereas our committee's smaller. So it's completely up to the committee, but if the chair is abstaining from vote, then essentially that's giving I think it really either way, it could be included in our rules of procedure bylaw if the committee found it appropriate. I think either way, it's never an ideal situation for the applicant to have it be a tied vote
Mhm.
and then it be denied, or, chair abstaining, and then it really leaves like two members
Yeah.
in the hand. So I think either is totally fine, and we could incorporate within the procedure, rules of procedure, sorry, not procedure bylaw. I gotta stop calling it that. So that's my thoughts on it, but
Carissa, I completely disagree with the chair abstaining from voting. I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
that silences the member's opinion on something. I really think that, the chair was always supposed to vote in the case of a tie. And if we have five members present, I guess the chair can carry the final vote that way.
Okay.
And that's just my opinion.
No,
Yep.
no, so
Keep
that
it
makes
as-
sense. Yeah, that's a good point, that if there was a larger committee, like if you're dealing with 10 people, then you still have 5 or 4 opinions, whereas we'd be down to 3 then. So
Exactly,
that is
so
very
it's-
small.
it's almost just forfeiting the decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Nope, I
Keep
can
it as
appreciate
is.
that. Awesome. So if there's nothing else, we will move to adjournment. Okay, that the Committee of Adjustment meeting adjourn at 11:03 a.m. moved by member Warren, second by member Truax. All in favor? And we're adjourned.